Hello and welcome everyone to our ORC webinar series. My name is Serena and joining us today is Juan Rico, who will be presenting on the topic of unpacking the CRA, upcoming deliverables and deadlines. If you have any questions for Juan as we move through today's presentation, please put them in the chat or use the Ask a Questions tab. Juan, over to you.
Hey, thank you very much, Serena, and thank you all of you for attending this webinar today. As in previous editions of the Unpacking the CRA, the main objective of this session is share the understanding we have about the CRA, how it impacts open source, and some of the initiatives that we are currently running, how to be part of them and contribute in your journey to comply with the CRA when you are using or consuming open source technologies. So the session will be divided in four slots. The first one will be a quick intro to the CRA. For some of you, probably it's information that you already have, but it's always good to remind why the CRA exists, what are the main objectives behind it, and how it is impacting the different open source projects that are covered by the open regulatory compliance. After that, we will cover first obligations because, we are less than a year ahead of the first obligation that the CRA is imposing. We will continue with the deliverables and finally how to join our community. So going straight to the first item, which is the intro to the CRA, it's important to understand that the Commission, when they thought about regulating the IT industry, they had in mind one study that they did in 2021 that quantified the global annual cost of cybercrime in 5.5 trillion euros. So that was the main reason behind trying to regulate all these IT or products or connected products environment, because the ones that are suffering the impact of cybercrime was basically consumers and businesses. So the CRA is aiming to safeguard those who are buying or using products or software with digital components. So based on that, what is the CRA trying to include or to embed in the development culture? And basically, what the Act will see inadequate security features become a thing of the past. So the introduction of these mandatory cybersecurity requirements for manufacturing and retailers is basically with the only objective of protecting the products and making a more competitive economy in Europe. So that's important because the first thing that we need to note is that the ones who are obliged under the CRA are manufacturers and retailers because they are the ones placing the products in the market. We have light regime for open source projects, and that's also important to know that the ones that should be complying with the CRA are manufacturers and retailers, the ones that are putting the products in the market. The second thing that is important is what is the Act trying to establish, and the first thing is that mandatory cybersecurity requirements. So in this line looks like something a bit abstract, but we'll see later on during the webinar that this is not abstract at all, and they are trying to really define pretty well what this means and how this can be implemented. And the second element that is important and represent a huge change compared to the previous status quo, the current status quo today, is that the protection should be extended through the product lifecycle. So it's not just assured that when I design something, it's secure enough to be in the market, but actually how we are going, or how the manufacturers and retailers are going to support existing products in the market to comply with those cybersecurity requirements that are imposed by the Cyber Resilience Act. So going a bit deeper into this topic, and there are several things that are important to take into consideration. The first one is that it's necessary to perform a cybersecurity risk assessment. The CRA is a risk-based regulation, so it's important that this process is taken is taken seriously into consideration in the design and selection of the components that will be taking part or will be participating in the products that will be launched in Europe. So yeah, the first aspect is to perform this cybersecurity risk assessment. The second element is that the cybersecurity requirements governing planning, design, develop, and maintenance across supply chain and through product life cycle. What does this mean? That actually you need to perform due diligence of open source dependencies. So this is an important change because traditionally open source was just get from the projects and put in your products, consume, and that's it. Now this is something that the CRA is asking to improve and update to create a more sustainable ecosystem. Third element that is important for manufacturers is the vulnerability management, reporting, and upstream of fixes. There are specific text in the CRA that defines how this should be done, and also what is the relationship between the manufacturers consuming open source and the reporting of fixes, the reporting of vulnerability, how to upstream fixes, and the relationship among all the different actors that take part in the whole supply chain. Good. So yeah, all these things are quite new compared to where we are today, but the CRA is also formalizing how this will work. And they're basically, the Commission asked both the European standards organizations, Senelec and ETSI, to develop harmonized standards. Actually, there are 41 standards requested to be provided, and those standards are expected to provide presumption of conformity. There will be also additional implementing acts that it's basically not standards, but documents in which the Commission will be presenting how to comply or how to support compliance. For instance, it's expected to have something on attestation programs. And there are also best practices, basically try to formalize best practices from the industry that can help manufacturers to perform due diligence properly. So there are a lot of different things that are currently being developed that work all of them together and that impacts the multiple stakeholders that are part of the software supply chain and or in general, the supply chain of products with digital elements, which is actually the term that is included in the CRA. But yeah, one of the things that we usually heard when we start speaking about the CRA and the impact it has is that, we know how to do compliance already, why this is different or how it's this different from the things that we were doing so far. So I think this graph represents very well what are the changes that the CRA is bringing. And the first or probably the most important point is that the CRA implies full supply chain compliance. So before, and this is based on the stats that are publicly available, usually author code and procure code is around 24%, so one fourth of the global code. And compliance so far was basically focusing on that part, the things that manufacturer or company is developing. Now with the CRA, you are also responsible for everything that you are taking from elsewhere. So it's basically the open source supply chain. Now you need to demonstrate that all the code that you are placing in your products is compliant. So it's not only the 24%, but also the 76 additional code that you are embedding in your products. And what is more important, usually those open source components that you are including in your products, you don't have the same level of understanding and control as the one that you are developing. So the complexity increased by several orders of magnitude, and it is important that with this picture in mind, you are able to set new priorities and define the way in which you are going to cooperate with open source, consume it, and maintain it. So that's one of the biggest challenges that CRA is bringing. As I said before, the standards are here to help us or to help everyone in the compliance journey, and it has been defined in two groups. The first one is the horizontal standards that basically are 15. Some of them are the risk-based approach, essential cybersecurity requirements, or vulnerability handling. So those horizontal harmonized standards are technical specification developed by recognized European standardization organizations that are officially linked to an EU regulation, the CRA in this context. So if a product complies with the relevant harmonized standards, it is presumed to comply with the corresponding legal requirements of the CRA. So this means that following harmonized standards is the easiest and clearest way to show your product meets the CRA security requirements. Being said that, it's also important to know that using harmonized standard is voluntary, and manufacturers can choose other ways to prove compliance. But again, the risk is much higher and probably it's a more complex process. So in simple terms, harmonized standards are like the official safe path to show that you are obeying the CRA without extra audits or legal uncertainty. So we have here the horizontal and the verticals. Just a quick note, because I think it was yesterday, the ETSI launched the open consultation for some of the draft standards for the verticals. So if you want to take a look to it, you can go to a Stand4CR website, and you will find a way of following what these standards are currently including and how to provide your comments to them. All right. So the CRA text is quite important, and what we have identified is several challenges for the open source community. And the first one is the clarity on the CRA text, and it's basically ensuring that everyone understands what the Cyber Resilience Act mean, and especially identify what are the cases that are not fully covered in the text that needs to be clarified. So that's one of the first challenges. The second one is interfacing with the regulators and how to communicate effectively with the regulatory bodies. In the CRA, open source have been included as a new economic actor, and this brings a lot of questions for everyone and also a lot of opportunities to interact with the regulators and to present open source in a way that represents properly what is the current software supply chain. Input to the standards is also one of the critical aspects, because as I said before, contributing to them and have them reflecting properly what needs to be done to be compliant or to provide the presumption of conformity, it's a key aspect, and the role that the open source is playing in the product with digital elements is so important and need to be part of this process. However, we have not been traditionally contributing to this work, so it's not easy to, or it's not trivial to contribute to the standards in a way that is effective both for the standardization bodies and also for the open source communities. And the last point is not only applicable to open source communities, but in general is basically raise awareness. Raise awareness about what the CRA means, and raise awareness about how to use open source projects and contributions in a healthy and sustainable way. So those are the four main challenges that the CRA has brought to the open source community. And in this context, open regulatory compliance emerged as a collective effort from the open source community to bring clarity in this new scenario that software regulation is setting. We started with the CRA, but of course the objective is to create this space as a place to discuss about regulation, open source, and software regulation. So in a nutshell, there are 5 things that are included in the mission of the working group. The first one is to be a neutral forum. It's basically you need open source communities, maintainers, industries, and basically every stakeholder to have a place to discuss this openly and find the common understanding on how to proceed with the compliance of the different regulations. The second element in our mission is a regulatory awareness and ecosystem impact. As I said before, awareness is one of the biggest challenges with the CRA. There are a lot of uncertainty, and many people don't get the real impact that the CRA is bringing. So, use the working group as a place to work together to raise awareness and use it in a way that we can both contribute to increase the understanding of how open source works, but also how open source can be used to comply with the different regulations. The third element is, do not reinvent the wheel. That's something that everyone is saying every time, but actually this is something that is really important for us. There are a lot of best practices and sustainable solutions that already exist. So the first thing is to identify them and check how we can rely on them already to comply with the different regulations. And for those aspects that are not covered yet, define best practices and propose solutions that will be sustainable for all the actors in the software industry. A fourth element is the education and implementation. So develop materials that will help everyone to be compliant with the CRA and understand why or the role that open source plays in the whole software supply chain. And the last element is the institutional collaboration, which is, as I said before, one of the most critical aspects for two main reasons. The first one is help everyone to understand how open source works, what are the dynamics, and how they can rely on the work we are doing to contribute to the regulatory processes. And the second aspect is participate in the development of regulation and not be just consulted at the end. So try to increase our relationship with them to support the definition of a new regulation for the open source. This has been translated in 4 pillars, which are thought leadership, technical work, institutional engagement, and representativity. I think that the first is quite clear. It's through the different assets that we want to create, demonstrate that the working group can be a reference for understanding and working on the compliance for different regulations. The second aspect is the technical work. So from best practices to specifications, we translate community experience into reusable tools, guidance, specifications. So these serve as a foundation for compliance strategies and feed into the formal standardization efforts aligned with the CRA. I spoke before about the institutional engagement, basically bridging community and policy, actively coordinating with the different institutions, ensuring that open source perspectives are heard in the regulatory dialogues, and also collaborations replace confusion that was especially with the first drafts of the CRA and the previous status. And finally, representativity is also important to us because the more we are, the stronger our voice is. So the CRA opens a new chapter for open source accountability. And the more contributors and community we bring to the table, the more credible, inclusive, and effective our response will be. So very briefly, and I was just to share here some of the members that we have currently in the working group. We are 57 today. From big tech companies to small foundations, basically we want to provide, as I said before, a good range of diversity in the views that we are including in the work. And we are also happy to welcome new members to join us, either as with their companies, which is the best way, but also individual contributors that want to join the efforts that we are currently developing. So where we are today, it's based on the things that I've just shared, is on 3 main aspects. The first one is more intense collaboration with the institutions. That's one of the challenges that we saw, how we can engage deeper with not only the European Commission, because I think the European Commission is or have been in touch with us for a long time already, but also get in touch with other institutions, especially at national level, that they are not yet well versed about how open source work, and also increase our participation in with the ESO. So that's one of the first areas that we are pushing right now. The second one is granularity in the work within the community. I will go deeper into this, but the CRA is quite broad and touches multiple topics. So define granular approach is the only way of being effective. So this is something that we are taking seriously, because we know how hard it is for anyone that is starting their CRA journey to join some of the efforts and effectively contribute and get good insights on what are the right things to be done. So this is a really important aspect that we are considering right now. And the third element goes in the similar direction. It's basically more inclusive processes to participate in the community work. So we know what are the challenges, and now what we are trying is to open the community to everyone, not only to be part of it, but also to give them the tools to catch up and not restrict the contributions only to experts, but enable everyone to have the tools and assets that can help them to become a good practitioners of CRA compliance, and to actively participate in the things that we are currently developing. So, yes, a second. First, obligations, and that's probably one of the milestones that we had in our agenda. And basically, vulnerability reporting obligations are starting in 11 months and 12 days, so less than a year. If it wasn't clear enough in the previous slides, the challenges that the CRA is imposing are quite high. And I think that the vulnerability reporting is probably the lighter one, but it's a very good exercise to start defining how you can shape your CRA compliance journey. So here I'm going to cover how ORC can help you, and basically based on three main ideas. The first one is that we are a community that share concerns and propose solutions. So that's an important aspect, because one thing is flagging what is broken already, or what are the things that are complex to understand. But what the community is trying to do in the working group is also to propose solutions to those challenges that we are seeing. So that's an important point. The second point is, we are organized to enable discussions. Agree on everything is almost impossible. So basically, what we agree is on disagree, and through these disagreements, try to find a way of creating assets that will show a common consensus-based understanding of how the different topics will be. For sure, we need guidance from the European Commission in some of the topics, just to be sure that our assumptions are correct. But at least what we are doing in the community is to enable these discussions to happen and try to find common grounds in which we all agree, so we can push this to the institutions and get a final version approval view from them that hopefully are in line with our thoughts. But if it's not in line, it's not a big issue, because we will get responses for the questions that we have. And finally, we create assets that support the compliance journey. So that's important. It's not only to create a community and have those discussions, it's basically also to create assets that can be used and consumed, and also to provide feedback to them that can help everyone who is using or consuming open source to support the compliance journey. So I mentioned before granularity, and this is one of the biggest challenges that we have with the CRA. So there are multiple topics, and here what we have seen is a huge gap between how experts can contribute to the discussions and how people who is starting, or they're basically not experts on those topics, can contribute and um, get the ideas that they can actuate on. So keep discussions at the right place with the right level of depth is super important, and also keep the focus on the right topics. It's also a way of being effective in the discussions that we are having. So for us, and based on that, we have organized a structure that enable this type of conversations to happen. And let me share what is the structure of the working group. And I will go directly to the cyber resilience here, where we are discussing about everything related to the CRA. And what we have created is multiple task forces. So we can have those dedicated discussions within the task forces, and then in the cyber resilient group, we share a high-level view of what are the technical discussions that are happening. So this way, we are creating several levels of depth or granularity in the information. So we simplify, or this is the intention, to simplify how to catch up and contribute to the different discussions that are needed within the group to contribute to the CRA development or implementation. So when I mentioned before the assets, I was referring to our deliverables, and I will go a bit through it because we have split the work in 4 different types of deliverables. Documentation, inputs and contributions, white papers and specifications. I will go through them right now. And the first one is documentation. And that's probably, this is basically entry-level information that we are consolidating from contributions from our community. The first one is the the first one is our FAQ. We've been working on this for many months. I would say that more than a year right now, and we found 2 main things. The first one, and that's an important lesson we learned, is that the number of questions that we have are larger than the number of answers that we can provide, which is natural, but also took us to a place in which we need to understand and redefine how everything was being developed. So it was important for us to create this or to start with this to understand what is our starting point actually, because it is a really good. Everyone has access to the CRA text, but we need to basically consolidate that the understanding we have from the text that we are seeing is the same for all of us. So in this direction, we started with the FAQ work, and we define a quite simple process to contribute, basically to open it to everyone, because again, experts from one topic can be newbies in another. So this is the most effective way of getting a good picture of where we are with the different aspects that the CRA is imposing to open source communities. So the process is super simple. It's basically, first check everything that is already in the FAQ. So if it's you have a question that haven't been already included in the FAQ, just create a proposal. This will be discussed within the community. As I said before, for some things we agree easily on what is the approach we should follow. For some others, we basically were unable to find an agreement. But both things are equally valid, because the first one gives us some strength to go to the commission with a proposal. The second one gives the same level of strength to go to the commission and ask them for guidance. So that's important. And when we work on community consensus, that's the best approach that we can take. Finally, for those things on which we agree, we work on the delivery to be finally published. So yeah, as I mentioned before, we have a task force, a specific task force that works on the FAQ, which is open and collaborative. And basically, in task force, what we do is to provide an in-depth analysis of the multiple issues open. What we are trying, because it was over 130 right now issues in the FAQ, and the challenge is how to make sense out of all of them and how to organize the content in a way that it's not a random search through a huge list of issues, but actually how to organize the information in a way that it's easy to consume and also easy to contribute. So that's the role of the task force, and yeah, that's something that you would see with the next version of the FAQ. But so far, you can still contribute and consume it from our GitHub repository. Good. The other thing that we work in terms of documentation was the inventory. And as I said before, saying that you don't want to reinvent the wheel is a good purpose for everyone, but how to do it is but basically going and doing an in-depth analysis of what are the things that are already in place that cover some of the requirements that are imposed by the CRA. So this is a work that our community did. And yeah, we found a lot of different references that can be used as an entry point for starting with the compliance journey. So this is also a work that is available, and yeah, I just encourage all of you to take a look to it. So the second element in our deliverable plan is inputs and contributions. So, well, basically, what we have here is all the opportunities that we have had as a community to give feedback to a specific CRA-related documents. So, yeah, we have from inputs to consultations from the European Commission, inputs to the documents from Sensenelec or the European standard organizations, or and also to things that have been discussed within the CRA expert group. What we have found here, and that's also important to mention, is that there are two types of contributions. Public consultations and input to and comments to documents not disclosed to the general public. We are making this distinction because, yeah, on the one hand, for the open source community, it's not as usual to have something that cannot be publicly disclosed, and yeah, it's a challenge also for us to define a way that we can work in this kind of setup efficiently. And yeah, also because this second way of working is much more challenging than the first one. So how we are organizing our response to public consultation is basically through these four-step processes. Four-step process. And the first thing we do is propose something based on our common understanding. We have some discussions. This is something that could happen either in the task forces when it's something more technical, or can happen just in the general mailing list or in the SIG calls. But we try to find a minimum common understanding that we can provide as reference. We have this first proposal, it's discussed always in the open, regardless that the availability or the openness of the document we are discussing. Our discussions are always happening in the open, and that's basically to allow everyone to participate in the discussion. Of course, giving as much context as possible is always our intention. And yeah, that's not always easy when the documents are not publicly disclosed. And then, as we had with the FAQ, is trying to find the consensus, what elements should be in place in our response, because we are giving a community response, so that's something that should represent properly the community and not only the voices of a few of us. And finally, consolidate all the inputs and create the final document. So yeah, and that's the way we are getting all the different responses or creating all the different responses from the moment we start identifying what are the key topics that should be included until the moment we create the final document that is finally released. All right. So yeah, that's some of the or one example that we've done, or one of the inputs that we provided to the Commission on the implementation of the technical description of important and critical products. Yeah, basically, I'm sharing this just as an example. The type of things that we discussed was from reclassification and additions, moving items from important to critical, propose new additions to elements like the build managers and zero trust component, classification of scopes. Yeah, core functionality. I think this is something that have been discussed for many months, and I don't know if we will end up this discussion, but it's one of the most important aspects, especially when a product has multiple functionalities. How to define this is something that impacts how you demonstrate the presumption of conformity. So we have a say on that topic too. Refinement and removals and structure community feedback. So those were just, or this was just an example of the type of things and the type of contributions that we provide as a community when we are discussing about yeah, this type of feedback to consultations. Yeah, what happens when the documents are not public, which is, for example, the case with Sensenlec or the CRA expert group. What we try to, or what we are implementing right now is basically the following process, which is the first thing is bring topic to discuss publicly. So yeah, we cannot share the documents because they are closed, but we can take the key ideas and especially those affecting the open source communities, yeah, to be shared in public. Yeah, not breaking the rules of participation in the different bodies, but at least bringing this to the community to be discussed. The second aspect is to collect and consolidate inputs from the community. Again, as in the previous cases, yeah, we want to represent properly the open source community. So, yeah, depending or not depending, based on the context that we can share, we get those inputs. Also, yeah, we have people in the community that have access to the documents as well. So altogether, we try to find yeah, a good common view of our community, and finally report feedback and share it yeah, with the community. What we are reporting back to those institutions is because it's something that we are creating. It's also materials that we are sharing openly with the community. So again, it's not a perfect situation because yeah, we lack a bit of context without the initial document. But at least, yeah, the topics that are key in the document, the discussion, and the feedback that we are reporting are all available publicly for everyone. So this is something that we have implemented, for instance, in yeah, contributions to Sensenelec, PT1, or the vulnerability handling standard clause for yeah, vulnerability handling. But yeah, that's the process that we are following, and through these links you can access to the feedback that we provided for those two elements in particular. Yeah, and the third element that we will be covering today is white papers. And yeah, white papers is something that we target quite a few at the beginning of the year, but we haven't been as active as we expected. But yeah, we are currently working on stewards obligations under the CRA. But in my view, what is important on this, or the lesson that we've learned, is that there are two key aspects that we need to bring to be effective in the way we work in the community. And the first one is focus. We have so many opportunities to provide feedback. There are so many events. There are too many things that can distract us from following the line that we need to go to basically support open source community. That is important to define your focus and go for the things that you understand are important for the open source community. So that's something that we have identified during the year, and we will be working on in the coming months. The second one is adaptability, and that's also an important lesson because we don't have control on the conversations the institutions are having. But actually, the outcomes of those discussions will arrive at some point to us, and we need to be ready to participate, provide feedback, and engage as much as we can to be effective in the work we are doing. So those are two things that sometimes are a bit, or conflicts a bit with defining a clear role, a clear path, several deliverables that we want to have, and work on them on a siloed approach. So that's something that we've learned through this first year of implementing the CRA, and that's something that we will be also reflecting in the next steps that we are taking as a community. And so I've spoken a lot about what we are doing, our community, the CRA, but how to join our community. That's the last part of the presentation for today. So the first thing we always recommend is to check our GitHub space, or the GitHub organization. And there we are storing all the information, and we are getting track of all the interactions that we are having. This is minutes of the conversations, the deliverables that we are defining, those that have been completed, those that we have decided not to work on, FAQ, the inventory, everything is in our GitHub right now. And the most important thing is not the final product, which of course it's something that it's important, but also to see what is the activity that we are having in the different task forces, in the different topics that we want to cover. So you can easily jump on them in case there are things that interest you, or you have questions around the topics that are covered by those task forces. So the second thing we always recommend is join our calls. Everything that we are doing in the working group is open. Of course, we encourage membership, but we are not a closed community. So even if you are not a member of an organization that participates in ORC, you are always welcome in the discussions that we are having in the meetings, and of course in our GitHub. So check our community calendar and join the events that we are organizing, especially the SIG calls and the task forces calls. And the third aspect is join our mailing list, because again, everything is shared through the mailing list, and we are using it as the single communication channel through which everything is flowing in the working group. And also join our chat in Slack. That's super effective for quick interactions with community members, or even with members of the foundation. But again, don't take Slack as the only channel, because every important communication will be arriving through the mailing list, which is the way we assure that everyone is getting it. And Yeah, of course, visit us at the events in which the community will be present. Now I want to promote the Code and Compliance event that will happen on Brussels on the 22nd and 23rd of October this year. We'll be releasing the speakers and the full agenda during this week and next one. So yeah, it's time for all of you to register, participate, and get a deeper insights on what we are going to cover through the event. Yes, briefly, it will be from presentation of different manufacturers sharing the journey they are following for CRA compliance, open source foundations, the standardization work. So basically, we are an attestation, voluntary attestation workshop. Basically, is to combine all the different pieces that I mentioned before about the diversity and the impossibility of being an expert on all of them. To get a good overview of tooling, standardization, best practices, examples that currently exist in the CRA compliance space, and of course, gather with the ORC community. And finally, membership. It's also important. We are an organization that is driven by my membership. The effort of contributing to our activities is open to everyone, but contributing through membership is what help us to stay alive and work on these four elements: shape the future of open source compliance, stay ahead of the regulatory change, also be part of a diverse and global community, and you can always rely on our services also to amplify your voice. So I encourage every one of you to be part of our community, and that would be fantastic if you also explore our membership opportunities, because again, we want to demonstrate the representativity that we have. So just for closing, the key takeaways from this session, I would say that the implementation of the CRA is a journey where three key aspects are critical: close relationship with the institutions, ability to be ready to contribute and engage in discussions that are relevant for compliance every time. And finally, focus, basically to not to be distracted when with all the noise that happens around the CRA. Second element is, or second aspect is the ability to execute. How to demonstrate that the contributions that we are doing or create valuable contributions and address the right topics. So identify the pain points, and for that it's important to go through things like the FAQ and identify those aspects that are gaining or having more momentum or collects then the more number of a long number of questions around them, and work on them and try to find solutions. What we are doing in ORC is basically developing in the open and contributing in inclusive and open way, participating in regulatory discussions that they were not always as open as we would like. But the way we are implementing this in the working group is basically to enable everyone to participate in these discussions. And of course, join us. That's a good way of getting ready for CRA implementation. In all my talks, I always say these two things: do not start the CRA compliance journey on your own. Join one of the initiatives if it's our much better. And the second one, don't wait, because we are less than 1 year ahead of the first obligation, and it's important. It's something that imposes changes in many of the processes that you and your company probably has. And understanding the impact is something that takes time. So don't wait and start engaging with these initiatives. And with this, Serena, I'm ending my presentation, and I don't know if we have questions.
Thank you so much. No, that was an excellent presentation, Juan. So I do encourage anybody in the audience currently right now, we do not have any questions. But if there is, kindly use the Ask a Questions tab or add it in the chat. But yeah, it says a reminder, there is upcoming events that Juan had mentioned. So be sure to go and click on, maybe you can put that up there again, the QR code for the event itself, and an
Yep.
opportunity to join and register for that.
No, I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that probably the most important one and the only QR code that I haven't included.
No worries. But if you have any questions at all, Juan is more than happy to forward over the informations on how you register for this event. And there is no questions, Juan. Thank you again, and thank you everyone who joined us today. It is greatly appreciated. You all have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.